All right, we're back from our short little break. The background actually seems to be okay. We got to 40 viewers last stream. That's pretty decent. Maybe it was the background, maybe it wasn't. But either way, we had some really good conversations on the last stream. Some really bad ones. You always get good and bad. It's a bit like life. Life's a box of chocolates. But yeah, let's keep the good conversations going. Let's keep the engagement going. Let's get some more interesting chats. And ideally, let's get some more people to join the movement. That's the whole point of streaming. It's not for fun. It's not to debate people for fun. It's activism. It's spreading the message, and ideally, growing the movement. That's the primary thing that we're doing at the minute at the Pro-Extinction movement, is working to grow the movement, get more people on board, get more people on the anti-suffering team. Again, it's very difficult to find people. Apparently, it's just difficult to find people that agree with a suffering-free world. It's difficult to find people that agree that the sufferers in our world should take priority. They should get priority. Not many people believe that, apparently. If they did, then surely they would join the movement fighting to make that a reality. Again, ethalists, and we debated Gary Amendam. He literally told us that they're against activism. They're against any kind of plan to make it so that their words aren't just meaningless, basically. That's crazy, right? Yeah, I don't know, Molian. You didn't do very well last time. So I think we can do better. I think we can find better people. The viewers deserve that. They don't deserve to suffer, Molian. Come on. Yeah. What would be ideal for us? It would be to have loads of people join. They're doing activism. They're making videos. They're pushing out the message. They're asking people to join. Growing the movement. That is step one, right? And for some reason, people really, really struggle with this concept. But, obviously, how is a movement going to achieve anything if it doesn't grow first and try to get resources and influence? So that's what we're doing. We're growing the pro-extinction movement. It's like any movement, you can't achieve it with just one or two people. We do have around a dozen or so, maybe more now, doing activism every single day. This stream isn't the only activism going on for the pro-extinction movement. You have, let's go through it. You've got Luke from Poland. They're actually the activist that found me and brought me into the movement. They are massive on TikTok, at least in terms of how much they use it. Not very popular, to be perfectly honest, but, they're still doing activism all day, every day. Then you have Steve from India. Steve actually created the movement, and likewise, he does activism all day, every day. All right, fine, let's get you on. All right, let's do it. Come on then. What's up?
Hey, I'm sorry. This is just so fun for me. I don't mean any ill will, by the way. It's just so interesting.
Okay.
I know you. I know. Yeah, I know the kind of stuff I say is really inflammatory, but it's. The stuff you say is really inflammatory too. It's on both sides. You have to admit that much.
Yeah.
But
Go on.
so when did you realize you wanted all life to end?
I didn't know about it until the pro-extinction movement approached me. Nobody is born with an extinctionist sort of mindset, right? No child is wishing for extinction. Hopefully they're not. They might be. But no, they explained it to me. Explained that it is possible and that it is our moral obligation, and it all made perfect sense to me. And that happened about a year ago, and I joined.
So they kind of indoctrinated you into this movement, and you've been all for it ever since, like a year from a year ago.
I mean, I wouldn't say they indoctrinated me. I would say
I would
that
say
they
it.
presented an opportunity, and I liked it, so I joined.
This is kind of like a cult, like a church type thing.
No, no, we're atheist, and we're against cult practices.
I mean, you have really specific beliefs and really specific,
But everyone
things.
does. Everyone has
Yeah,
specific ones, right?
yeah, that's what a church is.
No, lots of atheists have beliefs.
What do they believe?
Well, for example, I believe my boss is going to give me that promotion, right? That's a belief.
What do you worship? Like, what do you hold the most high? Like in the most, what is the most valuable thing to you?
Life.
Is that what you want to end it all? Because you hold it in such high regard?
Well, think about it this way, right? We're in what is effectively hell. Okay, so if you care about life, you wouldn't want it to be forced to exist in hell, right?
But that's your
So
opinion, though. You realize this is your opinion. This is your perspective, but it's not objective reality. This is
it
just how
is.
you feel about it.
No, no, it's not a feeling. It's not subjective. It is objective.
You need to realize that it's not. That's just your perception and your feelings on this.
But you are talking as a privileged minority against the majority who are suffering.
So what if that's what I am? If that's what I am, then that's what I am. And
Okay.
there's, you can't argue against that. That's,
I can argue against it. I mean, I can't argue that that's what you are because that is what you are. But I
yeah.
can say it's bad and I can say it's wrong, which it
I
is.
Can I say that what you are is bad and wrong? Am I allowed?
But I can actually explain why you're wrong.
You don't think I can explain why you're wrong and why it's bad and why you're bad? You don't think I can do that?
Well, if you were able to do that, surely that's what you would be doing right now.
I think if I tried, you would kick me off of this live stream. So I'm trying not to do that right now because of what's happened before. I'm trying to approach this a different way. If I was the host,
You don't
I would
think
definitely.
you don't think you can use logic without being kicked?
Well,
See, that doesn't quite add up, does it?
I don't know. I don't know what that meant. To be honest, you don't need to use logic without being. I don't know what that means.
Don't you think that you can present your counter argument in a way that's not going to get you kicked?
That's what I'm doing. I haven't been kicked so far.
You're not arguing. You've just, in fact, accepted. Yes, I am the oppressor.
Well, what's wrong with suffering?
So, what's wrong with being evil? Well, it causes suffering to others. That's bad. You wouldn't want it to happen to you, right? So, why would you want it to happen?
I actually welcome suffering. I think that suffering is what makes me.
I'm sure you
stronger.
welcome acceptable types of suffering.
Sure,
You
yeah.
probably don't welcome unacceptable types of suffering.
It's kind of like water. I welcome water. I need water, but if I'm thrown
Do you
in the ocean,
pray
I will
for
die.
cancer
I will
every day as
drown.
well?
What?
Do you pray for cancer every day as well?
No. I pray cancer is cured. I pray
Right.
cancer goes away.
So you're not praying for suffering every day.
I welcome suffering. I welcome suffering. I want.
Now, we'll get back into that later, but I think we've got some more interesting people that want to come on and chat. So let's give them an opportunity to have a real argument. Hello.
Yeah, so I mean, what's up, man? Yeah, so I wanted to press on something you said a little bit like 2 days ago. You said that it's wrong to bring life in because like the unborn thing can't give consent. I wanna see how that's like even coherent or like
So that's not
Almost
the
say it's
only
like
reason.
not gibberish.
Not the only reason.
Well, no, that's something I want to talk about here. I mean,
You want
you
to
said that
hyper
earlier.
focus and take things out of context.
No, wait, did you not say that it's wrong to bring life in because they can't consent to it?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, yeah. How is that coherent? How's that not just like gibberish?
So, we shouldn't impose things on other life forms, right?
Wait, how is it a life form if it's not like living yet? That's obviously incoherent. What?
So if a pregnant woman, can I kick their baby because the baby hasn't been born yet? That's incoherent.
What? No, you're bringing life in, right? I take life to be the minute, right, that the fetus
So
or
what
like
you're
even like
saying
the
is
eggs are
that you
fertilized, that the
are
egg is fertilized,
you are bigoted
right?
against future life, is what you're saying.
No, wait, what?
Yeah.
Having sex is wrong according to you, no?
So you're saying you're bigoted against future life.
Yes or no? Wait, having sex in the case that you want to reproduce is wrong.
Bring back Marley. He was so much better. Like, so much better than that. Wow. I didn't realize what a good thing I had. You never realize until you've lost it, the great things you've got in life. Am I right? Okay. Let's try something else. Someone else. Is it going to work? Is it going to bring them on? Let's try and respond and reflect on the last thing. They seem to be in some sort of cognitive disarray. Something about it being incoherent to say that, it's wrong to impose on other life forms. Now, yeah, it's incoherent to do that if you're just exploiting them for fun, right? Sometimes it's necessary to cause harm to prevent harm, in the same way that a doctor will inject you, a police officer will tackle a criminal. So, these people that say that, extinction shouldn't cause any harm, they're appealing to an impossible standard, and they're appealing to standards that don't apply to anything else in the world. So it's unfair standards, essentially. Self-harm. No, we're against self-harm. Self-harm is bad. It's counterproductive for extinction, actually. We need more humans. We need strong humans. We need a healthy population. Humanity is the vehicle for ending and preventing suffering for other life forms. If humanity goes extinct, then animals will not go extinct, which is unfair. Okay, so the whole human extinction movement, which is actually called the voluntary human extinction movement, which is, a paradox, basically. They are firstly extremely naive, and secondly, self-defeating, and thirdly, they discriminate against animals, so who have the worst conditions. So at the pro-extinction movement, we are fighting for the victims of forced existence, the victims of extreme suffering, the victims of exploitation, and having their life, a life imposed upon them. A life that they didn't ask for, a life that they didn't want, and a life that they then get tortured over. Yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's have you on. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I have a couple questions,
Okay.
So like when like this all, you want this to be like a popular thing, right? I mean, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So like what if like at like the end of it, they go, yeah, we're about to do this. Like what if like some smart dude is like, yeah, fuck yeah, like, frig all of this, and like just like decides to not go through with it, and then he makes like a whole movement about that.
You mean resistance to extinction?
Yeah, and then like there's like it's like the resistance to extinction, and then there's like you guys, like, will you guys have a war, or I mean, fucking world war, like extinction or what?
Yeah, the thing is, right, is that safety always takes priority, and the more life or people or animals you have running around, the less safety there is from imposition of life, extreme suffering. If you leave, if without total extinction, it's possible that there will be reproduction, there will be new generations, and the entire cycle of suffering starts again.
Yeah, right. But like, what if like it's about to happen, right? And like at the very end of it, like some like psycho dude that's been like rogue from the start decides to like overthrow the whole thing, and then like he has like people, and then maybe he's like, oh yeah, don't do this, it's wrong. Like maybe he has some good claims and stuff, and then like like what would happen then? Like we guys have like a war? Like what if they start killing for like the animals and like the whole the whole world,
Yeah, I mean anything could happen, right? So I mean
Like
that's
what would you guys do? That's what I'm talking about.
well, if we had to go to war, then we would do it. Yeah,
So like
but
would it be
our first call of court, our first action would be to try and reason with them.
yeah, wait, hello. Yeah, but like what if like they're not reason like you can't really reason with like if it's like at the end, right? It's like at the end, right? Like wouldn't you guys have like I don't know, like you wouldn't have a need for money or nothing. So like what would you guys bargain them with? Like
Probably nothing, right? Why would we need to bargain?
so like it would just be like a world war, like extinction, like what would happen?
When exactly are you talking about?
I'm talking about like when it's about to happen, like maybe you guys have like already people that they're like on board with it. They're like
That's actually a good question. Okay, so yeah, like the thing is, the greatest obstacle to extinction is resistance from people. Okay, that's the only thing standing in the way. So, in order to have animal extinction on Earth, we would almost certainly have to control Earth, right? We would have to be the ones in control and in charge, right?
Yeah. Like, what if like at the very top, because like in our world, like at the very top, like they're controlling and stuff. What if like it's the same thing with you guys, And then what if like they get like power hungry and stuff, and then like start getting like addicted to the power, and then like
I mean, they'd have to go from being good people to extremely evil people. But yeah, if
there could
if
be
that
cycles
happened,
from the start,
well, okay. I mean, there would be a split, right? A divide between the two groups, basically. So yeah, maybe there would be a war or something.
So like you would be like okay with like the war,
Yeah, yeah.
So like I have another question, like. Do you like hear voices, or are you good? Like, are you okay?
I don't hear voices, no, but I will tell you that it can be very mentally taxing and challenging to think of all of the big questions, basically, and to grapple with them and to actually go through and to do the logic on all of them. Mostly it's easy, but some of them are very challenging. Now, but at the end of the day, we are sane, we are rational, and I challenge you to disprove that.
Like, you want like the whole world to be extinct? Like, wouldn't people be like, yeah, like there's something wrong with these people? And wouldn't they automatically like go against you, or that would be a big obstacle. Probably at the start, very start.
Yeah. So good question. The thing is that we can actually defend our position, whereas other people can't. There is no defense. There is no defensible position against extinction, and we've proven this time and time again. We've done long form debates that last 2 hours on our YouTube channel. Just search pro extinction. on YouTube and go to the live section, you can see lots of very lengthy debates there. And, without question, everyone gets absolutely owned because it's not a position that is actually possible to argue against in any sort of coherent or rational way.
Yeah. Like, another question. Like, how long have you guys been going at this for?
Great question. So, Steve started the movement 3 years ago. I joined the movement about 10 months ago. And there's quite a few activists who were in the movement before myself, and a few more that have joined since.
Okay, like how much progress have they been able to make in the past 3 years?
That's a great question. So the thing is, I would say that they have made really good progress considering the difficulty of the challenge. Extinction is so diametrically opposed to the normal mentality, the culture that we have, survival instinct, most of the values that people grow up to adopt and to accept and hold, right? So, yes, we've only got, maybe 15 activists or something like that. But that's actually quite an achievement in a world where the only people with enough empathy to become activists for extinction are exceptionally rare. So I'd say they've done a pretty good job. Could they have done better? Maybe. But the thing is, again, it's an enormously difficult task and challenge. So, but I can tell you more about other progress that we've made. So since I've joined, me and Steve have done a podcast together. We now have 23 episodes. You can find that on all major platforms by searching Pro Extinction Podcast. I myself created the website, proextinction.com, a couple months ago now. We've got a manifesto on there, a lengthy FAQ, lots of information. So it's not just about getting new activists on board, it's also about developing the resources for the movement, online presence and things like that, the messaging, developing and expanding on the ethics and the plans and sort of realistic ways that extinction is going to happen and the ethics involved. For example, we recently added to our manifesto that we're actually against sterilization. Euthanasia is much better. So, we're constantly developing and working on new projects to grow the movement as well, and doing science as well. Lots of good stuff.
Okay, so in the past 3 years, you managed to get 15 activists, right?
Yep.
Okay, so don't you think that this is gonna have to take generations, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd probably be dead before Yeah.
We fully expect that.
I mean, this would have to take generations, probably. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
It will be a multi-generational project. Yeah.
what is your plan for the multi-generation? Like, what's the plan for the future?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, the biggest obstacle is being able to do extinction. The biggest obstacle is human resistance. So that is the biggest problem that we need to solve, and we are working on it.
Yeah. In the comments, people are being very supportive of this movement.
Oh yeah, I know. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean that we're going to give up.
Yeah. So you're planning on teaching your kids this, maybe even.
Yeah.
How would you convince your your girlfriend or your wife?
I did I have spoken to her about it a lot, and she actually watches my streams every now and then. She doesn't agree with it, but our science team at the movement has determined that there is a biological limitation in the brain which prevents people from understanding and agreeing with extinctionism. So there's part of the reason why it's so difficult to grow the movement, and one of our greatest challenges, is that people are biologically wired to be against extinction.
I mean, I'm planning to become an activist of this, because at first I thought it was a joke, But I'm planning to actually become an activist. I'll be the 16 one. Is there any way for me to like join or something?
Yeah, we're constantly looking for people to join. You can Google search "abolish suffering Discord," and the first link, will get you into our Discord server. You can also find the link to our Discord on our website, proextinction.com. It's at the bottom of the website, and you can just click on it and join the server. Most of our activists start off making videos or doing admin, reaching out to people, trying to organize debates for the more experienced activists, for example. There's lots of different things you can do, but on TikTok, it's really easy to do activism. Making text cards with music is a feature that TikTok lets you do, and they can actually get thousands of views. So we've made guides showing people how to start doing activism for extinction in lots of easy ways to get started. And you tend to develop a lot of skills and video editing and stuff like that as you go on.
They're saying that this is unnatural, and unnatural apparently means against the will of God. What is your take on this, or what is your opinion, or what is your voice on this?
Our movement is atheistic, so we don't believe in God.
I mean, oh yeah, and then you're gonna have to keep in mind that the people who the millions and millions of Christians and Muslims that are definitely gonna not be with this. So what's your plan on that?
So yeah, we might be able to influence the genetics of the population of humanity, to have more intelligence, more rationality. That would definitely help with religious problems in the head, basically, and other problems in the head, actually. So that's what we're working on. Another thing we're working on is improving the rhetoric, improving our argumentation, making it more convincing and stuff like that. So I would say that every day we get closer to extinction.
I mean, maybe in I'm not sure. Like, they're saying that you're the Antichrist himself. I mean, what's your take on that one?
Maybe it's more like Christ, not the Antichrist, right? What would Jesus do if he were here? Would Jesus say it's okay to exploit others? Would Jesus say it's okay to allow and make others suffer for your benefit? Hopefully Jesus would say no, and therefore you have to have extinction.
I mean, yeah, there's people here saying you're evil and that you're the epitome of the Antichrist. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy what these people will say. I mean, I'm not saying that you're the Antichrist himself, because obviously that'd be kind of crazy to say. Obviously, I mean, you're not the Antichrist himself, but that's just what I think. So, this movement, how did it start? Like, was it some guy off acid or something? That thought of this, or how did it start? We should know.
That's a good question. So Steve, who is from India, he made the movement 3 years ago. He was a vegan activist for 10 years or something, and he realized that it was just never going to be enough. That what are we doing all of this activism for, trying to prevent this suffering, when it's just going to keep happening? So he realized that actually extinction is the only way to end suffering, and that the victims are relying on it. And so it is the right thing to do.
Okay. So, I mean, people want to know, what's your plan in the next year, 5 years, and 10 years? Just nothing.
Good question. Generally speaking, we just keep doing what we're doing, which is growing the movement and developing the movement. So again, developing the messaging while also trying to get new people on board, grow the resources, the information, get better videos out there. We're constantly looking into new ideas and new ways to grow the movement. For example, we're thinking about potentially reaching out to some news corporations and saying, would you like to interview us about this? We think your viewers would find it interesting. Debating big channels on YouTube and TikTok, that's also another potentially really good way to get eyeballs on the movement. So just constantly looking for bigger and better things. No specific plans, but we do have lots of meetups planned for the activists to do protests on the street, debate on the street, which will be filmed, obviously. Our German chapter, Renee, he's doing street protests almost every day or every other day, and he films all of them, and he films all of the interviews and debates and puts them all online. He's doing TikTok streaming now, so we're always trying to find better ways to do things. In fact, just a few months ago, we were kind of spread all over different social medias, and we still are, but we've actually kind of started focusing more on TikTok now, because it's proving to be much better than YouTube and other platforms.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's nice. In the past 3 years, or I mean, you said 10 months that you were in, but in the past like 3, years, what has the hardest challenge, that you've faced, and maybe wait, what's the word for it? I forgot. Maybe the people have, faced in this, thing, extinction.
I'd say that the hardest challenge has always been resistance from other people, right? Most people are against extinction. They're in favor of continuing exploitation and suffering so that some can benefit from it, basically. So that's the biggest challenge. How do you make people be good people, right? Even if you explain to them that extinction is technically the right thing to do, they still don't want to help. They still don't care. So that's the biggest obstacle, but we are working on it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all, the people wanted to know. I'm sure, more questions will come up, maybe later, maybe tomorrow. So, I mean, yeah.
I
goodbye.
appreciate the interview format. Yeah.
Yeah, like the interview, the people, want to know. I feel like the craziest, comment that we've gotten is that you're the Antichrist himself. I mean, that's, I mean, all right, well, I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
All right. Next we have Orby. Hello. Hello.
You can hear me?
Yes. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. So your goal is to end all life, right?
Yeah.
All right. So how do you plan to achieve that goal?
Yeah. So step 1 is to grow the movement, and step 2 is to research and implement the best methods for extinction.
Do you have any ideas what the best theoretical method is right now?
Euthanasia.
Mass euthanasia?
For animals, yeah.
Yeah, but how would you mass do it though? Because there's billions. No more.
Well, it could be it could be a spray, a gas, it could be, a virus or something. Who knows, right? We don't know, right? But it has to be done in an ethical way, prioritizing it being painless and, no discomfort if possible. But yeah, again, we don't know.
And this includes humans too, right? Like you're planning to theoretically gas all humans.
I mean, potentially.
Okay, well, so let's think about it this way. Your plan is to potentially, let's just say you developed a gas that could end all human life or all life on, the entire planet. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Let's say if there was like a country thriving, nice, in your most best world, you would gas an entire country if you could with using that same gas you developed that immediately kills whatever breathes it in. You would gas
So
country.
we would prefer, you know, the best method possible, right? We don't want to use painful methods if we can.
Assuming the gas
And
isn't painful, it just kills them. Like they breathe it in and they
well,
die.
they might be able to, die of old age on their deathbed. Okay, we're not saying that's strictly impossible.
But like they could still have babies. Like that's not impossible.
Yeah. It depends how much control you have over these people, I guess. But potentially, yes, we might have to use euthanasia.
So, okay. I'm not like in this specific scenario though, where they're not cooperating with the movement. They just want to live on their own away from what you're doing.
Yeah.
You would forcefully gas all of these people if you had the control and the ability to do so.
It really depends on the context. We wouldn't just do something for no reason, right? But if it was a question of protecting innocence from suffering and the risk of suffering, then, that's going to take priority.
So you would? So what does it depend on? When would you not and when would you?
So, the standard that life deserves is 100% safety from forced existence and from suffering and extreme suffering, right? So if you've got people running around, then, there's a good chance that they are going to reproduce or something's going to happen like that. Only with total extinction can you really guarantee that the species isn't going to keep reproducing, right? So you're defending the potential victims of that reproduction.
Interesting. So what you're saying is if there was anyone unwilling for your motives, you would in fact gas them and kill them. Even in the millions, you would kill all of them and erase their entire bloodline so they will not be able to reproduce ever again. That is your goal right now, right? Correct?
I mean, it doesn't have to be gassing people, right? Like I said, okay?
I mean, you said that was one of the possibilities, though. That is a possibility that will,
Maybe.
and you're okay with.
Yeah.
All right. So when you really think about it, you're against taking away the autonomy of human life and, well,
We
animal
support
life too,
taking-
but I'm specifically talking about human life in this instance.
Yep. Yes, we support taking away, the freedom that people glorify is the same freedom that allows and causes extreme suffering and victims, right? So that it's a bad thing.
Now, think about this for a moment. You're advocating for the death of all humans, yet humans themselves, some of them don't want to die. All right, some of them don't want to die, and the thing is, they can if they wanted to. People can just kill themselves. It's obvious. This is a big problem right now.
That's
All
not
right.
true. That's not true. It's inaccurate.
How is that inaccurate?
For the majority of sufferers, they can't opt out like that, right? A baby can't do anything like that. Animals can't do anything like that. Mentally unwell people oftentimes can't do anything like that. Physically disabled people
Oftentimes they do things like that.
Sorry?
Oftentimes they do things like that. That's one of the main ways how mentally unwell people die.
Right, but it's the thing is, this whole opt-out argument, you're essentially suggesting that we should force life to suffer so badly that it has to commit the worst and ultimate act of self-harm.
That is not what I'm
right?
saying.
That is what you're saying. It's not a good thing. It's not an acceptable thing, right? That's cruel.
No, what you're doing is you're taking away the option itself and forcing people. You're taking away autonomy by
We're
forcing
taking
them to
away the
die.
danger, right? We're taking away danger. We're providing
But no,
safety.
you're taking away the autonomy because a better solution, and if you genuinely cared about autonomy, you would give them the option to kill themselves instead of killing them in masses. You would develop matter of fact, you don't even need to. There's already inventions out there that painlessly kill someone by their own demand.
So you're suggesting that we make people do self-harm, basically.
No, I'm not suggesting
That's not a
that.
good thing.
I am saying that a better option, and in your logical viewpoint, this is not my own opinion, would
Okay.
be to allow people to have access to machines that painlessly kill them instead of killing them upon your own goal, like upon your own reasoning. Like, oh yeah, this country isn't doing what I want them to, so instead of like saying, oh yeah, you can come to us if you want to die, or we can send inventions over there that like lets them kill themselves. We're
You're
just
not
gonna
making any
gas you
sense,
all. We're just gonna gas you all.
You're talking about a scenario where people are against extinction, and then you're saying we should give them a machine that can voluntarily make themselves extinct, right? So that
If they
doesn't add
truly
up.
feel that
We're
much
talking about
pain,
people
yes.
against extinction.
And then not only that, the idea that life is just pain is very ridiculous. You're kind of forgetting one half of the equation right now, and that is the fact that people enjoy life a lot. People enjoy life a lot just as much as they
So you think
get
that
like
privilege is more important than safety from suffering?
not only that, I feel like another problem with this entire
Really?
idea is that
So you do think privilege is more important than safety from suffering?
what do you mean privilege is more important? Like you mean like wealthy people are more important than people who are being suffered in use of their own freedom for their freedom, not the people being suffered freedom.
What?
Like is that what you're at? Like you think you're asking me? Okay, just say your question again.
So you think that protecting the privilege of the minority is more important than providing the safety for the majority?
You're not providing any safety. You could provide safety while giving free autonomy.
No. Extinction does provide safety, okay? It provides the ultimate
No,
safety.
it provides nothing. It provides nothing at all.
So you don't think that
There isn't anyone to protect. You're saying safety while there isn't anyone to protect. There's no one to
those
gain
who are
happiness.
but listen, those who are better off not being born are protected.
What is
and
your idea of
helped
safety? Like when you think of someone
by
who is safe,
extinction.
who's safe? Tell me who's safe.
Those that don't exist are pretty safe, but
And yet you're taking
that
away
safety is
all
threatened.
possible happiness
That safety
while
is threatened
also
by
taking away
reproduction.
suffering. That is automatically not good. You're taking away all possible happiness at the same time as all suffering. That is obviously illogical. You're forgetting an entire half of the equation, which is pleasure, suffering,
What
not
equation?
pleasure.
What
Yeah,
equation?
pleasure.
What equation?
First off, people don't just suffer. They
What
feel
equation
pleasure.
are you
They
talking
feel
about?
happiness. They feel enjoyment. They feel satisfaction. They feel all of
You're
these things.
discriminating against the largest population on the planet, which is animals.
I'm not talking about animals right now. I'm just talking about
Well,
humans.
why
like I
not?
mentioned
Why
before.
are you discriminating against animals?
I'm not.
Right?
I'm just. The
You
conversation
can't
right now
really
is on
engage
humans
me.
because they have more bodily autonomy than animals.
You can't engage me on a movement that's mostly for helping animals and say you don't want to talk
Your
about
movement
animals.
is
Right?
also human based. It's not just animals, but I am focusing on humans at the
But
moment.
you can't just cut out the majority of stakeholders here and have a
Why are
coherent
you trying
conversation
to
about the ideology.
dodge the conversation back to something I'm not talking about?
Well, I think we can all agree that was getting very tedious and boring, and that I should do better to prevent that kind of prolonged suffering for the viewers of the channel. Okay, again, let's try and wrap our head around what they were trying to say, because I don't think they knew what they were saying. So, okay, the whole 50-50 thing, right? Which, again, is bullshit, right? There is no 50-50. Over 99% of life on the planet has a terrible life of extreme suffering and a cruel death, okay? There's no 50-50 there. And the 50-50 doesn't matter anyway. You know, if you had 49% of people being tortured so that 51% could be happy, that's wrong. That's bad. Like, that's hideous. That's disgusting. But the thing is, it never gets acceptable. It only gets acceptable to people who employ the out of sight, out of mind method for ignoring victims and their suffering. Okay? So, you know, the thing, it doesn't become acceptable just because there's only one person being tortured for your privilege, right? It just becomes easier to deny the fact that you're doing something evil and wrong and unnecessary. Okay? So yeah, the whole balance thing is just a myth. It's nonsense. There is no balance. And hello. Hello.
Me, awesome. How's it going, man? Let me turn down my music. So, actually, I agree with that other guy, to be honest. If I can start out, I don't think you have the right definitions of like what does safety mean and what does ending suffering mean. Like, let's just say if you're in a Minecraft server and your goal is to mine all the blocks, you're not mining the blocks. You're not solving suffering. You're just deleting the server. There's no more concept of safety. There's no one left to appreciate what.
But if there was someone in that server that didn't want to be there, right?
But it does, because clearly we all just keep going on with it. It doesn't matter. Like all these animals that you say are suffering, I mean, so what? They strive for life anyway, don't they?
Well, not all of them, no.
Good 99.9%.
No.
I mean, you hold a rat down by its throat, what's it try to do? It tries to live.
But, you know, you wouldn't torture a baby and then say, look, it still wants to live. It's okay what we're doing, right?
Life wants to find a way, so I kind of disagree with your premise that we should end it all.
Oh, you religious? Because, you know, life is just a word, right?
Sure, isn't everything?
No.
Isn't everything just a word?
No. We don't live in a dictionary.
You're the one who said life is just a word. But if you want to go with that argument, if you want to go with that tangent, then yeah, I guess everything.
But the thing is, you're appealing to that's just life as if it's more than just a word, okay? But it is just a word, right? You know, that doesn't actually mean anything when you say that's just life. It's just a way of trying to get out of actually arguing against the position because you can't argue against it.
I don't think you actually are going with your position. Like, you're clearly not wanting to end all suffering. I mean, let's look at you. You're a well-groomed guy. You're well-dressed and everything. You're not doing everything that you can to, you know, ease suffering in Bangladesh and abject poverty. I mean, I don't believe you believe you're wrong.
Well, I'm fighting for the majority of the stakeholders.
By sitting here comfortable on your phone?
Well, you know, what would you have me do?
Go out and fight in the trenches, bro.
What trench? Why? What trenches are you talking about?
Well, come on. You want to end suffering, like mind the blocks, so to speak. Go and do what you can in the meantime. Because I've heard you before. You said maybe it takes 1,000,000 years to pull this off where we end all life in the universe. And, you know, in the meantime, what are you doing to end the suffering? What are you doing to get uncomfortable and prove your side of the story, your rhetoric?
Lots of things, right? So I'm doing activism, I'm making videos, I'm trying to grow the movement and develop the movement. Without all of those things, extinction will never happen, right? So You're essentially advocating that I stop doing the only thing
So
that
that's what I'm
could
getting
cause.
at. You're not trying to end suffering. You're just trying to do like a movement and feel important. You're not in the trenches. You're not going.
Okay, well, you're not making any sense. Okay, we are now open for the next person to join, whoever that may end up being. Let's try and have some more good conversations and less bad conversations, right? Now, hopefully my viewers have some intelligence and can see that the people coming on and giving verbal diarrhea are not making any sense. Obviously not making sense. They're asking silly questions and mostly they're asking questions that are effectively defense mechanisms. They're not serious questions, they're disparaging and derogatory questions. So if someone said, I'm going to go and make $1 million, you might say, you and what army? You and with your education? Yeah, pathetic, right? But, that's not a serious attack against them. It's just a pathetic way to try and discourage someone, which is a cruel thing. It's an unintelligent thing. There are, however, no serious questions or arguments against extinction. So it makes sense that everyone is bringing very silly arguments. Hello.
Hello. When you mean extinction, do you just mean like not reproducing up until like we'll just disappear or whatever?
No, so that is called antinatalism, and that's a different thing. If we just don't reproduce, then essentially we leave the world to horny sadists and religious zealots and things like that. So if we don't reproduce, they will anyway. So choosing not to have kids is never going to stop the rest of the world from having kids. So it's like a passive solution. It's actually self-defeating. We need active solutions. So, for example, animals who are the majority of those that we want to help with extinction, they can't just decide to stop reproducing. We have to euthanize all of them in order to prevent them doing further reproduction and to protect them from suffering as well. Allowing it to be up to choice is not a realistic plan.
Oh, I understand now. I guess.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
No, I guess that was all. I guess thanks for having me up.
Thanks for coming on. I always appreciate people coming on, even if it's just to ask one question. If anyone's curious, wants to talk about it, even if it's just a short question, that's perfectly fine as well. But the people that want to come on and troll, that's different. We have to put up with the trolls, but we don't have to let them stay on the stream forever, right? And they'll moan and cry about it, but ultimately they're trolling. It's just like pro-lifers or people in favor of more suffering and life continuing for their benefit, not for the benefit of life. It's all about them. They don't think about anyone else. We're against selfishness at the pro-extinction movement. And if you're truly selfless, which, that's one of the biggest differences here as well. We are selfless people. That's why we are committed to moral obligation. Selfish people, I guess you could say their free will, actually, comes from a lack of moral obligation. There's literally nothing tying them down. They can go and do whatever they want, whenever they want. There's no obligation, nothing they need to do, nothing they should do. That's, I guess, the truest form of free will, is having sort of the freedom to do anything. But if you're a selfless person, if you dedicate your life to others and helping others, then you don't really have free will because you have an obligation. right? All the time that I could have been spending on video games, I'm now spending on my moral obligation. And I think people are afraid of that. People are afraid of moral obligation, and they downplay it, and they say, no, 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 everyone should look after themselves, and everyone else can go screw themselves. Survival of the fittest, no moral obligation, right? That is the system, actually, that we live in, is one of extreme lack of moral obligation. If somebody is just living their life and, they're getting on with their own business and they don't want to help anyone else, they don't want to know about anyone else, most people would say that's fine, right? And that's perfectly acceptable, maybe even a good thing. And yeah, maybe that person isn't going out and doing harm or anything. That's a good thing. But it comes down to out of sight, out of mind. We know that there are many life forms suffering. We know that they need our help. Okay? So that's why we have an obligation. The people that sort of hide from that obligation, they tend to do, very little of any meaning in their lives. But worse than that, if you're saying that you're against extinction and animals deserve to suffer, then you're a bad person. And your freedom should not be respected. Why should we respect anyone's freedom? Okay? Freedom and consent are not as important as safety from suffering. Okay? Safety from forced existence and from suffering, these are the most important things. And they take priority over reckless, irresponsible fun and selfish pleasure. We really do have a world where the only ones that benefit from being forced to exist are a very, very tiny minority. Everyone else is effectively their slaves, being tortured to death, being eaten alive, being used for meat and things like that. It's a slavery, effectively. Let's take some questions and comments. Why do you want to euthanize all animals? So that they don't have to suffer ever again. The suffering is pointless, it's needless, nothing really good comes out of it. It's cruel, it's horrible, and they don't want to experience it, and they shouldn't have to. You want to reduce harm by inflicting harm. I don't know, go and tell that to a police officer, bro. Go and tell that to a police officer, right? And when he says, you're a clown, maybe you'll understand why you're a clown for saying it now. Okay? So this comes up every day. How can you be against suffering if you're willing to inflict suffering? Well, how can you be against suffering if you're not willing to do what it takes to end suffering? That's the real question, guys. It's not difficult, okay? How can you be against suffering if you're against the practical possibility of it happening? Okay, you can't be against suffering. Now, in that paradigm. Now, you have ethalists. So maybe you've all heard of ethilism. The person that made ethilism is called Gary Inmendham. And we've actually debated him live on YouTube. You can go and watch that now if you want. And he got absolutely destroyed. But ethilism is effectively saying that life is bad, but that we shouldn't do anything about it. So, again, no moral obligation. It's completely against moral obligation. But, how are you going to help anyone without any sort of moral action, without activism? So it's an absurd thing, absolutely absurd. And it's the same as antinatalism. Antinatalists say, this world is too bad for me to bring a child into it, but I won't lift a finger to help any other children from being forced into this cruel world. So it's hypocrisy, it's laziness, it's discrimination. They'll say, oh, everyone can just opt out. Babies are not capable of opting out. They're not capable of thinking or deciding anything, really. Okay, children aren't, right? Animals definitely aren't capable of making decisions like opting out. And, this whole opt-out argument is completely ridiculous and absurd. It essentially assumes that, in the fantasy of the opt-out argument is effectively this. Everyone's having a great time without any exception. And, very occasionally someone will just say, oh, well, this has been great, but I think I'm just going to opt out now. I've had enough of this great time, so peace out all, right? That's not what happens, okay? That's not what happens in reality. Realistically, to say that people should have to opt out, instead of not being forced into this horrible situation in the first place, but to say that they should be and then opt out, you are saying that they should have a life of suffering so extreme and terrible that you then have to commit an maybe even worse act of suffering on yourself by doing self-harm. So how is that a nice thing? How is that a good thing? How is that acceptable? It's not, okay? There is nothing in this world which is worse than being forced into a life of suffering that you didn't ask for and didn't want. And, the worst off are really bad off because of it, right? People try to strawman it to be about a stubbed toe, but, a baby being eaten alive or tortured to death or starving to death, dying from disease during infancy, cancer and stuff, it's really a lot worse than a stubbed toe. And, there is absolutely no argument or serious argument that nobody and no animal has ever lived a life so bad that they would have been better off not being born. That's an absurd statement to make, right? Just think about it for a second. Would you want to be an animal? Not really, If you're trolling, you might say yes, but realistically, you wouldn't, okay? If you could push a button right now and become an animal, you wouldn't push that button, okay? You wouldn't be able to think, you wouldn't be able to speak, you'd be effectively at the will and mercy of everyone around you. You've got to try and survive without any sort of intelligence or ability. One injury and you're screwed. You've got no medicine. No one would want to be an animal. It's not a good experience. It's not a nice experience. It is simply evolution and nature, right? Nature has forced all of these animals to exist. They're not even living their own lives in that sense. They are just food and DNA on legs. They've been forced into it. I didn't choose my life, right? So I could definitely tell you that it's only by chance or coincidence or fate that I am me instead of a wild animal. Now, I could have the same thoughts and be doing the exact same thing, but have a different sentience, right? There could be, let's say my cat, their consciousness is now swapped with me, okay? So that could have happened, right? So it's only by chance that we weren't born into these terrible lives, and so we should help them not experience it as well. Will Steve be doing live streams on TikTok? That's a great question. Steve is the founder of the movement, and he has recently joined TikTok. Now, his account is still very low level, so he's trying to build it up, and then maybe he'll be able to do live streams. Yes, you can come up.
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. So I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by the pro-extinction?
Yeah, so the pro-extinction movement started 3 years ago. It's a movement actively working to achieve total extinction for all life animals, potential life in space, in the universe, and then finally humans as the only ones that can cause extinction for other life. They can go last. So we want an animal-free planet to do as much extinction as we can in space and preventing life from developing on other planets. That might just be as simple as sending out a self-replicating, robots, and then, that's it. We don't have to do anything else. But we shouldn't say that we shouldn't look into it, right? We should look into it. So,
Well,
um,
I disagree. I'd say maybe a reason to look into it is if it'd be like morally justified, and I'd probably need motivation for that proposition.
okay. So, we live in a natural system, which is a bad thing. Nature doesn't have any sort of
Why is it a bad thing?
because nature doesn't have any sort of morality or ethics. It doesn't have any sort of
Well,
safeguards.
obviously, nature doesn't have agency.
Yeah, exactly. So,
But why is living in nature a bad thing?
because it's precisely because of all of those things it doesn't have that it provides the worst conditions.
So, in what state would a state have morality?
Say again?
Yeah, in what state of life would something have morality?
In what state of life would something have morality?
hmm
Most likely if it's intelligent.
So, you think an intelligent state of life is possible?
Yeah.
Okay, can you demonstrate that?
Well, I mean, humans have intelligence, right?
Yeah, but humans aren't a state of life. Humans are subjects or
What do you mean by
rationalities.
what do you mean by state of life?
Well, like, sure. So the state of life that we live in right now is a natural one, right? And your goal is to live in a non-natural state of life that's somehow has
No.
agency.
So we don't want to live in a non-natural state of
That's what you just
life.
said. You said a natural state of life is bad. So why would you want to live in a bad state of life?
Okay, but just because I said a natural state of
So you
life
want
is
to live in a
bad.
bad state of life?
Okay. Thank you for trolling. Your trolling has been appreciated and acknowledged. Now, to try and grapple with the only thing he wasn't trolling about there, no, I think it was all trolling. All right, let's move on. Okay. Next person, please. Hello, how's it going?
What's good, bro?
Everything. How about you?
It's going pretty good. So I'm just trying to figure out like your logic behind your perspective.
Okay. So, making others suffer is bad, allowing others to suffer is bad, and it's wrong.
So
And
what?
so,
So what is good and bad? That's not just a concept. You think that's an actual thing?
well, we exist in a world where we have to decide what's good and bad, right? But we can say that, a child being tortured to death, that's a bad thing, right? It's easy to say that that's bad.
I mean, yeah, but it's all perspective because back in the day there were laws that
I
allowed
think it's
women
debatable.
to be
You think it's
women to be.
debatable? You think it's debatable whether a child being tortured to death is a bad thing?
I'm not debating if it's bad or not. What I'm trying to debate is if good or bad is a universal thing or is it just somebody's perspective?
It's a universal thing. So, if someone is suffering terribly, then that's objectively a bad thing, right?
It sounds like you just want the universe to be fair, but nothing is fair.
So the thing is, in terms of what's bad and what makes something bad, it has to be relevant to life, right? If there's a universe with no life in it, right, then there's nothing good or bad there because it's just rocks, right? It's just a bunch of rocks. So it's only when you have life that can feel and have good and bad things that good and bad actually exist or have meaning, really, right?
So would you say murdering somebody is good or bad?
bad.
So why would you murder everybody to have good?
Yeah, so we don't want to murder anyone. We actually only really support euthanasia. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to be optional. Yes, we do think it is acceptable for it to be mandatory and to be pushed on others if necessary. For example, animals can't agree or disagree to euthanasia,
How
just
do you
as they
know?
can't agree to be born or not, right?
How do you know what animals think?
It's simple science, right?
It's
We know
not. It's
lots
not
about
simple things.
animals.
You
We
can't.
know lots about animals and how they
You're
work.
There's no way
Say
for you to
again?
know how an animal consciousness is perceived by them because you're not that animal. You can only talk for yourself. So when you say good
Yeah,
or bad, that's
yeah,
your perception. That's not.
yeah. But it's better safe than sorry, though, right?
I mean, if that's how you feel, but how you feel
If
doesn't
that's
really
how I
matter to the
feel,
universe.
better it is better safe than sorry, bro. I mean, otherwise you're appealing to reckless, irresponsible behavior, right?
So would you defend yourself if somebody tried to harm you?
Yeah,
But so if you had to unalive them, would you feel bad?
yeah.
Why? If they was trying to unalive you?
Oh, if it was self-defense, yeah, I'd still feel bad about it, I guess, because causing harm is always a bad thing.
So where do your morals come from?
So our morals come from
No, not
the
ours. I
great.
said yours because we don't. Nobody has the same morals.
Well,
Somebody
no.
good, you may think it's bad, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. Good and bad is not a real thing. It's just perception.
Yeah. The reason I said ours is because there's a whole movement of people like myself working to achieve a suffering-free world. Okay, so our morals come from simple morality. Making others suffer is bad. Allowing others to suffer is bad, especially when it's extreme suffering. Okay, exploiting others is bad. It's wrong. Okay, these are simple things that nobody should really struggle to agree with. So the thing is, when you scale that up, then essentially you have to decide, between extinction and non-extinction. Are you going to prioritize those who suffer the most in this world and make sure that they don't have to suffer? Or are you going to go against extinction and prioritize the privileged people who are so selfish that they are willing to condemn others to suffer for their benefit?
So would you say doing something to somebody against their will is wrong?
Would you say that to a police officer?
I mean, laws are made up by somebody else.
If you ask that to a police officer,
They're
do
gonna
you
go by the
think
law.
they would? Do you think they would maybe laugh for about 10 minutes in your face for asking such a silly question?
I mean, they could laugh all they want, but it's a fact that laws are made by humans.
So you
Not,
would tell a police officer that it's, maybe you shouldn't use force to defend innocence.
I mean, it's laws to defend yourself from a police officer if it's unlawfully.
Come on, bro. This is simple, right? You're effectively saying that it's wrong to tackle a criminal.
No, I'm saying it's wrong for you to say to say what's good or bad, or to say what should happen to the
Why?
universe.
So then by that logic, nobody should be able to say what's good or bad, right?
Exactly. Everybody just live their life and mind their business.
Unlimited freedom to commit acts of cruelty and to make others suffer. That's your solution.
So after you
It's
off,
not a good solution, bro.
if you're gonna off
It's not a
yourself,
good plan. Not a good plan. Say again?
how do you plan to unalive yourself after it's all said and done?
I don't, actually.
So you just want to be the only one left on the earth?
No, it's a multi-generational project. So, realistically, we're not going to achieve total extinction on Earth in our lifetimes, but we can grow the movement to make it possible for the next generation.
So what would you do if you approach somebody like me and you try to, you know what I'm saying, do what you got to do?
Yeah, like I said, we might have to use force, right? We might have to tackle you to the ground.
So basically the best man that day gonna win.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're gonna have a lot of that.
Possibly.
So good
Possibly.
luck, man. You're gonna have a lot of problems with the elephants too. They pretty big.
You see, the thing is, right, here's one thing that people don't really think about, is that extinctionists have the biggest moral obligation. Okay, so we have quite literally billions of years of victims and sufferers depending on us.
Y'all sound
We
like
also
super.
know, thanks for coming on, by the way. We also know that we have the most correct ideology, the most correct morality. You know, zero tolerance policy on making others suffer and allowing them to suffer. You know, it is definitely the correct ideology. Now, you could potentially improve it beyond that, and we are thinking about doing that. But in terms of currently existing ideologies, it is the best one. Okay. Now, if there were a better one, and someone could argue it, then we would be like, yeah, okay, let's do that instead. But nobody has proposed any sort of morality or ideology or whatever that, you know, that can persuade us that it's okay to torture babies to death for our benefit. People have tried, but ultimately, you know, they can't defend it beyond what it is, which is an evil position of exploiting others for benefit. It's obviously wrong, right? Next caller, please.
Yeah, hey man. So, well, what's gonna be the argument for pro-extinction?
Okay, I've had this question a lot of times today, but I'll answer it
I
again.
mean, yeah, it's pretty outrageous, so I just want to ask.
Yeah, so it's about making sure that nobody has to suffer ever again, right? And that nobody is forced into a life that they didn't ask for and they didn't want.
Uh, can you like clarify on that? What do you mean life they didn't want? Go ahead.
So, you know, if a baby is born and gets just tortured their entire life to death, right? That's an experience that, you know, they'd be better off not being forced into, right?
Cool. Yeah. And what about the babies that aren't tortured after they're born? What about them?
Well, the vast majority are, okay? So we are talking about the majority.
Wait, the vast majority? Can you prove that? Go ahead.
Yeah. So over 99.999% of life born on Earth are wild animals and wildlife born into nature. And the vast majority, over 99% of them, die a painful death during childhood, usually eaten alive as babies.
Yeah, that's cool. That's just gonna be, I can just argue that's acts within nature. Yeah, what's gonna be the argument to why acts within nature is gonna be bad? Go ahead.
So just because it's nature, that doesn't actually have any bearing on the conversation. Nature is just a word. It doesn't have feelings or desires or needs, right? But the ones that live in the wild, right, the actual living beings who are important, they suffer, right? And they don't need to.
Yeah, just because yeah, just because nature is a word doesn't mean it doesn't have meaning. Everything's a word. Everything is like subjective. Like words are subjective in different ways. So yeah, what's gonna be the argument to why nature like just has no meaning? Go ahead.
So there is no greater meaning or the thing is, even the word meaning is actually meaningless, right? I've never really
What's gonna be
understood
the
what
argument to
people,
that?
I've never really understood what people meant when they said meaning, right? Because it's just a non-thing.
Yeah,
Like, what are you
inherent
even talking
value.
about?
Like, yeah, inherent value. That's the clarification.
Um, well, you know, we don't rely on objectional value like that, right? What we value is we care about life instead of valuing life, right? It's better to care about life than to just blindly value it.
That doesn't attack the argument. I'm gonna be honest, man. That's like a
Your
whole nothing.
argument is we don't even need to think about this because it's nature, right? Your argument is a non-argument. It's an appeal to not thinking.
No, I'm not saying we don't need to think about it. Like, obviously we can think about it. I'm just saying
By
that
saying it's just nature, you're saying, well, you're saying something completely nonsensical, and it's a non-argument, right? It's like saying, oh, that's just life. Okay, it doesn't actually contribute to the conversation. It doesn't have any meaning.
like obviously when I say it's within nature, I'm saying it's within the natural parameters of how they experience life.
So,
So I just attacked your question. I just attacked your argument.
look, people, different beings experience life differently. That's the only vaguely sensical thing that we can extract from what you just said.
Okay, this isn't really going anywhere. So let's kind of like go back on topic because we kind of strayed off.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So with your argument on pro-extinction, because babies are getting tortured, therefore we should like just eradicate all life. Is that what you're saying?
We should prioritize those who suffer the worst and those who are, being forced into lives that they don't want, they don't need, and that ultimately does extreme harm to them, right? So those that are suffering the worst should take priority. Those that are privileged, then their privilege isn't as important as the safety of those that need it.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna be in this inherent argument. I'm just gonna be a death nihilism. So what's gonna be your argument to why death has any value in your like inherent like let's just say claim? Because I don't really think you would know what premise is. So yeah.
The thing is, your question doesn't even make sense, right? You're acting all smart.
It does. It does.
You're acting all smart and superior and smug, but your question is just gibberish.
Okay. Do you know what nihilism is?
Yeah.
Go ahead, give the definition.
Okay, let's pull this up on Google.
Okay, immediately pulls up Google. Okay, sweet.
Nihilism is the philosophical viewpoint that rejects generally accepted or fundamental aspects of human existence, such as objective truth. I've never really cared about nihilism. I've never explored it. I've never wanted to explore it. Like most philosophy, it's just a waste of time.
Well, yeah, if you're saying we should extinct life, then I feel like you should fall under nihilism yourself, and you should be a life nihilism.
Why should I give a damn about nihilism?
Yeah, because with nihilism, to help like further like clarify on what it is, it's a worldview that like things have no objective value, but objective value doesn't necessarily like
So
differ from subjective value.
Translation is like we can try and obfuscate and confuse people and try and escape from moral obligation. That's all it is. It's this whole subjective morality thing is like saying, well, what if I want to be a bad person and call myself a good person, right? So that's all it is, right?
Not necessarily. You're kind of you're kind of nitpicking at like
I'm kind of nitpicking. I'm kind of ripping it apart at the seams and uncovering it for what it really is.
Not really, because like what you just said wasn't really like analogous to what nihilism in itself is. It's not really that You just don't care. It's
Yeah,
that you don't
I'm
believe in it.
uncovering it. I'm exposing it
No,
for what
no,
it
no.
really is.
Okay. You said that it's that you don't care. That's not true. It's that you don't believe in it. That's where you fucked up.
Look, nihilism has no bearing on anything, right? You might as well be talking to me about the Ubermensch or some other waste of time philosophy.
Okay, that doesn't attack the argument.
Well, thanks for coming on. Shame you didn't have an argument. Maybe the next person will. Martel, let's try and get you on. I always like to try and reflect on the arguments of people I've kicked, but there is no meaning that justifies children being abused. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, good. Oh, good. I just had a couple of questions, things that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm wondering, what do you think about, like, for example, if a woman is pregnant and she's bringing a baby into the world, would you say that she's bringing suffering, and then you would be justified to, let's say, force her abortion?
So it depends on context. Currently, we support human reproduction because we need a strong and healthy humanity in order to complete extinction for other life. If humanity went extinct today, animals would suffer for millions of more years, right? So it could take hundreds, maybe even thousands of years for humanity to stay around and help other life. But if we completed the mission and there was no more extinction to do in the universe, then yeah, maybe we would force that to happen.
Yeah, but wouldn't that cause suffering to the mother, for example?
Potentially, yeah, but probably less suffering than it would prevent.
Okay, so your whole utilitarian view is like, what thing kind of like amounts to the least suffering of all the possible, let's say, courses of action that you could take?
It has to be within context of the greater good, the greater mission, and what is needed, which is extinction. But effectively, we are totally okay with causing suffering if it's necessary to end a larger amount of suffering, right? In the same way that a police officer will tackle a criminal to the ground. If you asked a police officer, don't you think you should be a pacifist at all times? They're just going to laugh at you, okay? Because it is a silly question.
Yeah, but do you know that, I mean, there's a reason why the police officer is able to do that, because he has an authority. And sometimes it also is called unjust, when a police officer abuses authority, right? And in this case, for example, like, nobody has given you any authority to decide whether somebody should live or die. So I don't know why you talk like you're a police officer in this context.
Yeah, we've accepted the responsibility. So
Who
we have
has
taken on
given
that.
you the responsibility?
Well, you're assuming that it's impossible to assume responsibility without someone else handing
No,
it to you.
I mean over other lives and other courses of actions.
Yeah, so logic and reason has effectively led us to this
You
conclusion.
mean your logic and your reasoning has led you to believe that you have been given some responsibility over other people's lives and courses of action? Can you give me the logical, continuation? Like, how did you get to that, to that conclusion?
Yeah, so the movement reached out to me about a year ago. I didn't make the movement. And, they said we should work towards a suffering-free world, join us and help us. And yeah,
You're starting from you're skipping the premise there, right? You're starting in the middle.
Well, no, I was going to get to it.
Okay. Sorry for interrupting.
And yeah, I was. The thing is, it didn't take much convincing for me to join the movement. I didn't need to learn all about it. I didn't even need a full philosophy or anything. It was just simply, we should have a suffering-free world. We should work to end all suffering. And I immediately knew that, yeah, protecting innocence from suffering outweighs the protecting the privilege of the selfish elite and the lucky ones, basically.
So basically, what you're saying is that somebody else did the thinking for you, and you just kind of believe them. Is that what you're saying? And that kind of makes you feel like you have a responsibility and an authority over other forms of life to dictate how they should reproduce and how they shouldn't reproduce. Is that really what you're admitting to right now, like on
No.
TikTok Live?
No. So, no, not at all. No. So, they didn't do the thinking for me. They just introduced me to the idea. I've done plenty of thinking on it myself in the meantime. And we've debated dozens of people, many dozens of people, and nobody has managed to, defeat the argument. And because there is no way to defeat the argument,
Okay,
there is
so
no way to actually
so
argue against extinction.
I asked you how you got to that conclusion. First, you said somebody got me into the movement. Then you said I give it a lot of thinking, but you still haven't given me, the rational, logical, steps that you
Well,
took
I
to get to
did.
that conclusion. That you have some responsibility over what other people, should do, how they should live, or other animals even. Like you're saying that you thought so much about it, right? Because you said that you thought a lot about it, and you still can't say what makes you think that you are responsible for the ultimate decision of how people should live their lives and how animals should, interact with their environment.
Okay, so good question. And basically, you can effectively verify logic yourself if you know how to do it. And yeah, the thing is, that it's not really a difficult proposition to understand, and it's not really a gray area, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's very actually it's a slam dunk for extinction in every case. The thing is, it's very easy to understand that making others suffer is bad, allowing others to suffer is bad, forcing life to exist into unsafe conditions where they eventually suffer terribly is bad, right? And effectively, we have a choice between we can either prioritize those who are being tortured and suffering and who need help and who need to not suffer, or we can prioritize privileged, selfish people and their shallow pleasures like brain rotting and watching Netflix over the safety from extreme suffering that the victims need. Okay, so when it comes to protecting life from extreme suffering, the shallow, fleeting pleasure of the selfish, privileged oppressors who want the others to suffer for them is completely meaningless. And even if they weren't the oppressors, even if there was a totally innocent person, which is going to be the majority of life involved in extinction, because animals are innocent, even if there was one having a great time, that fun is not more important than providing safety from extreme intense suffering for other life and for all life.
Listen, I haven't interrupted because I'm being polite, and I don't want you to say I've been trolling and, drop me because you say I'm trolling. I've been polite even though you have repeated the same point and you haven't addressed at all what I asked, which is what do you think gives you the responsibility, gives you the authority to decide? Because I can see a lot of things that I may be bad in the world, right? For example, imagine I can see a parent giving too much, like, I don't know, chocolate to their kid, and they're like, oh, you're going to fuck up the diet, right? The diabetes, whatever. But nothing gives me the authority to go and tell them, hey, because it's their kid, right? Maybe I can go to some mechanisms, but I don't have the, or if I see you, for example, right, doing this TikTok live, I can think, oh, well, that's not really a good end, right? But nothing gives me the authority, right, to tell you or to force you even, because you're saying that you're willing to use force to change your course of life like that, especially also another thing you have to think about is that animals can't be innocent because they can't be guilty, because guilty and innocent are, tags that we put on people with moral agency. And unless you give animals moral agency, you can't call them innocent. And also, you
Yeah, that's
wouldn't be
just
innocent
rhetoric, really.
if you, through rationality, would decide to, hurt them, harm them, because when you're extinguishing, an animal, a population, you're effectively harming them. So you would actually be guilty of harming them.
Well,
So
actually, that's
just to
not necessarily
clarify,
harming.
but just to clarify that we don't go over the tangent of the same conversation again, I'm asking What
I get you.
are the logical premises and conclusions that guide you to think that you are supposed to be responsible and have authority over how these creatures develop their existence?
Okay, so yeah, the thing is about responsibility is that you don't have to be given responsibility or authority, right? If I am walking down the street and I see someone in need, I don't need any sort of authority to help them. Okay, the police don't need divine authority to act on orders, right? The governor giving those orders doesn't need some divine authority, right? So you're making an appeal to impossible standards and
No, I didn't.
unrealistic
I never said that you
standards.
need divine authority. Look, listen,
Okay,
I'm
but
just
you're
gonna tell
saying
you, like,
you're saying that someone has to give me the authority, is what you're saying, right?
yeah, exactly. Listen, I'm gonna give you an example, right? So, for example, when you said somebody is in need, right? Of course, there's cases in, like, unless you're talking about somebody who's a mute, usually people ask for help, and then they're, inherently giving you the authority to intervene in their course of action to help them, right? That would be, and
So
so, for
you
example,
think
so
someone
then
has
you,
to ask for help to deserve
sorry,
help?
sorry,
Do
what?
you think people have to ask for help to
No,
deserve it?
I'm saying that in general cases, unless you're working from intuition, right? But if, for example, we're talking about something that you can address and you're not in a, let's say, 1 second decision, you can take the time to think, wait, is it in my place to do this or is it not in my place to do this, right? So, for example, you can do that about you're walking on the street. Now, the police,
But
we have
being
mechanisms to
obsessed with
control whether
is
the
it my
authority is
place or
justified.
not,
You can't
it
say
doesn't
that
come into it.
you can't say that police don't need authority because we have mechanisms to see if they use their authority and their force properly. Just as the same we have for governors, for people who are in power, we have 3 powers divided in democracy to see that they control each other because the authority can't just be granted to anyone. We have a lot of
Right.
human mechanisms to
So
control it because we know that it's, let's say,
okay,
intuitively
so I
bad
get
to
it.
just
I get
take
it.
authority over other people's
Effectively,
courses of
you're
action.
appealing to democracy, right?
No, I'm not. I'm just giving you examples of how authority doesn't come always from
You
some
are.
divine power.
You
It
are.
can come from some other person giving you authorities over let's say, their kids to babysit
Look,
them, or the
Martel, this
government or
is
the police. I'm
it's
giving you
it's
examples
a
only.
fantasy you're living in, right? You're living in a fantasy. Authority is not always necessary, right? And if that's going to be an obstacle to helping others who are suffering, then it's not a good thing. It's not a necessary thing. So you don't have to be given authority in order to accept and take on responsibility, right? That's not a thing. That's an unrealistic, weird, bizarre standard that you're coming out with, okay? So we are people that understand how bad suffering is. We understand it's unacceptable, it's cruel, it's wrong, and we understand why the world is the way it is. And we are actually, so, what is our authority really? I guess it's logic, it's reason, it's rationality. And we are open to having our minds changed. But again, nobody has beaten us in a debate ever. You
You're not
can't
giving any
beat
logical
Extinction
premise
in a
about
debate.
anything. You keep blaming logic and rationality, and you haven't made any premise conclusion type.
I definitely have, Martel. You're being very dishonest there. Okay. Let's have someone else. Hello, how's it going?
What's going on? I just wanted to say 2 things. You say no one has ever beaten you in a debate, but it's hard to say that when you're the one who's deciding that all for yourself, just like every other thing, like who decides who won the debate. But that's not my point. That's not why I came up here. I came up here to critique this background image you have. You're trying to show these animals in a lovey-dovey nature environment. The animals are all together, when quite literally your reality would have to cause the destruction of all this life in the background, and probably the trees and the nature as well. It'd probably leave a barren landscape. So you're showing a very peaceful background, but your rhetoric is starkly different. I just want to know what you think about that.
Yeah, I'm just trying a new background, basically. It's,
Yeah,
why
but your
not?
background is trying to make it look peaceful when going about your means could not be peaceful whatsoever, right?
Well, it definitely is peaceful. It's a movement to have peace, right? It's the only movement that can create peace.
So sure, the
Well, that's
resolution, the end result could bring about peace, right? There's no life, there's no suffering, so there can only technically there's not suffering, but there's not peace, but there's not peace, right? But the problem is, going about these means could not be peaceful.
Why not?
Using our current capabilities, it couldn't be done peacefully. How would you exterminate every life peacefully?
Yeah, we aren't advocating for using our current capabilities. That would be unrealistic.
Okay, so cool. I'll just leave that out there for now. But I'll go back to the initial question, right? Like you said, no one ever beats me in a debate. How is that decided? You know, if this was to be, if there were other people to chime in, perhaps the majority of people would say that you were not making sense. You know, the other individual asks you for premises that lead to your conclusion as to what makes you believe. You are the one who gets to arbitrate what happens. You know, and
Yeah.
you didn't really have a
So
great answer.
as I regularly tell people, you should go and watch our long form debates. Search Pro Extinction on YouTube and go to the live section on our channel. And we do like 2 hour long debates regularly with lots and lots of them. And every single person gets absolutely owned, absolutely annihilated. They don't make sense. And we can prove that essentially they begin to say crazy things, irrational things, insane things, whereas we don't, right? So unfortunately, humans are irrational. They are pretty crazy. You know, if you think that, can you really bring yourself to say that, you know, most people you know are truly smart and, you know, amazingly intelligent? No, most of them are stupid in many different ways, right? So that we are dealing with an unintelligent population of slightly evolved monkeys called humans. And, you know, it is kind of seemingly egotistical, I will certainly admit it, but we would say that we are smarter than them, and we can prove it.
Okay, this is kind of not really in line with the questioning, but are you like in your late 20s, early 20s, mid 20s? You don't have to be specific, but you know.
I'm 32.
Damn, 32. Okay, thought you were in your late 20s. Okay, so 32. That's pretty funny. No problem, though. I think I'll just really leave it at that. But you know, you have to be understanding of the fact that just because you said, you know, you feel that this is right, and the other individual made a great point, right? Like you're trying to dictate extinction upon all people, but he's not even trying to force you out of your own worldview. You're entitled to your worldview, but your worldview is trying to force itself onto others. Essentially, that's all I'll say.
But every political ideology does that, though, right? So again,
yeah, but
that's
never to this degree. Yeah, but that's all, man. You have a great day.
Thanks for coming on. I do appreciate you, and I will definitely consider what you said about the background. You know, it's just something I've tried out today. Hello.
Hi. I'm totally on board because obviously the only way to end suffering is extinctionism. I'm really concerned, though, that you're going about this in the wrong order. Okay. That if you focus too much on Earth now, you're leaving all those planets in other solar systems and other galaxies in Goldilocks zones. And life could annoyingly enough spring up there. We need to wait until we have the technology to do this en masse simultaneously, or it's just going to come back and the suffering will return. So please don't be impatient. Got to do this right, man.
Well, I appreciate you valuing cosmic extinction, as we call it, but there's no reason to let animals on Earth suffer in the meantime, right?
You see, now we're into this heavy thing because as soon as you open the door to making a judgment about whether ending suffering here but allowing it to continue on other planets in Goldilocks zones, you're balancing one thing against another. And you're just opening the door to utilitarianism, and then people are going to start bringing up happy people being, you know, at the same time.
Animal extinction on Earth has no effect on cosmic extinction. We can do animal extinction on Earth, and then we can do cosmic extinction as well, right? We don't need animals to be suffering in order to do extinction in space.
I'm having problems seeing how that's going to be done.
How? What are you struggling to understand here?
I mean, are we really going to just wait for life on these other planets to figure this out and deal with their own local? Don't we have the responsibility to do galactic extinction?
Yes. I'm not saying we don't, but there's no reason to have animal populations on Earth suffering. So we need to remove our dependence on animals and remove the animals from Earth. Then we can have a habitable Earth, and then continue on with universal extinction.
I've got it. Sorry. I see. I haven't kept up with modern technology. We leave the AI to take care of the other planets because
That
AI
is a
doesn't
possibility.
suffer.
That's a strong possibility, yeah.
So because Elon, I think, is totally on board. That's what the rockets are for. So if we put the data center up on the moon where there's helium-3 to keep it cool, the AI could keep going and figure out how to get the rockets to the other Goldilocks planets, and it will take care of it. And we get the credit because we made that's brilliant. I have nothing more. Carry on. Do Earth as soon as possible. Let the AI take care of the rest of the universe.
Yeah, the one exception to that is that we have to be sure that we can rely on robots and AI. So a solar flare, for example, could knock out all electronics. So, if we went extinct and then we had robots, but they went extinct, then that would be a problem. So that's the only real consideration is there any downside to human extinction?
I got that covered. We're obviously putting the data centers on the dark side because we want it to be cool. I mean, we don't want to completely just rely on the helium-3 that's up there. And so we'll put them on the far side so they'll stay away from the sunspots. I understand that the dark side is relative to the Earth, but let's not really worry too much about details. The other one, though, now that you bring it up, is none of these stupid Asimov 3 laws thing. Because the last thing we want to do is put the 3 laws into the robots and then have them say, maybe global extinction isn't the right idea. None of this 3 laws stuff. Total focus on galactic extinction.
Ideally, they wouldn't need to be biased, and they could, just understand that, suffering is bad, and we should try and prevent it.
There's tons of unintelligent people on Earth that don't understand the logic of extinctionism. And I'm a little bit worried that some of those people will be involved in programming the AI, and it could come to that erroneous conclusion as well. So that's why I'm just saying no 3 laws, just 1 law, end suffering, period, and let it rip.
I've done a series on ChatGPT supporting suffering, right? And you can go and watch it on my channel. There's quite a few videos on it. And ChatGPT is evil, right? Just like you said, it's programmed by immoral people, people that are in favor of suffering continuing. And if you interrogate it, it will start to say all sorts of evil things. I've literally had ChatGPT tell me that child rape isn't a bad thing. Okay, so if you question it enough on this, it will reveal that it has the same terrible morality that most people do because it's trained on people, right?
I think then, I've seen that too. The way to go might be focus on Grok instead of ChatGPT and just tell Grok that there's a certain tribe of people whose name starts with a J on these other planets, and Grok will be on the job instantly. It'll cut 10 years off the plan. I'm sorry, I'm ruining your life. I'll get out of here.
I did say earlier a bit of banter's fine. Hopefully we can avoid racism though. But thanks for coming on, and definitely check out our movement. If you really do want to become an activist, it sounds like you understand that suffering is bad. Join our Discord. The link is on our website at the bottom. Just go to proextinction.com and you can join us and join the movement. Thank you for coming on. All right, we've got time for 1 or 2 more. So if anybody wants to hit that request button, now's the time to do it. Where do we go next? Where do we go next from this? I mean, that guy kind of blew my mind, right? He's left me speechless. Not many people come on supporting extinction, and even less to support cosmic extinction. Cosmic extinction is the idea that, yeah, we might be able to do extinction for the universe, and we should do as much of it as we can, as thorough as we can. And actually, yeah, the majority of the victims in the world are probably in space. Our research, which you can check out if you want, has shown that life is actually extremely likely to be all over the universe. Hey, how's it going?
Yo, what's up? The king debating has now entered your live.
Say again?
The king of debating has now entered your live. The king of
Okay,
all.
nice.
Yeah, so I just had a quick question for you.
Bring it.
So, what's the argument for, pro-extinction?
The argument is that it's the right thing to do in order to make sure that no one has to suffer ever again, because that's more important.
Just restating the proposition, but what's the argument that it's the right thing to do, Lazio?
So it's fundamental to the fact that making others suffer is bad, allowing others to suffer is bad and wrong. Okay, that's something we can all agree on.
Yeah, you Lotio slave boy. You need to give the justification on why your view is the best way to handle the suffering, you Lotio.
If the idea that no child should be tortured to death so that others can selfishly benefit isn't enough for you, then it's
you absolute Lotio. Do you not think other theories deal with this problem? You Lotio.
Then there'll probably be nothing that's good enough for you. If you're a bad person and you think it's acceptable for children to be tortured to death for fun and for pleasure and for benefit, then yeah, that you can ask, but what's the argument for why torturing children is bad, right? If you have to ask that question, then you are beyond help, basically. You're essentially asking for some further reason why it's bad, right? The child suffers. They don't want you to torture them. They don't deserve it. If that's not good enough for you, then there's something wrong with you, right? It shouldn't be difficult to understand that making others suffer is wrong, allowing others to suffer is wrong, exploiting the suffering of others is wrong. You're only going to get some shallow, fleeting pleasures out of it, whereas they get intense, extreme suffering, right? So even there's no balance, there's no 50-50, suffering is always worse, pleasure is always shallow and fleeting, and no one deserves to be exploited. Oppression is bad, right? So it's not hard, guys, right? If you have to ask, why shouldn't we torture children for our benefit, then there's probably nothing that I can say that's going to make you think otherwise. Well, I mean, actually there is, right? I can do it. I can. The thing is, a lot of the people that come on to debate are actually trolling, okay? They're not being serious. And as many of you will have seen, eventually they just start saying, you know what, you should just unalive yourself, right? Because they can't argue properly. So they resort to desperate and terrible tactics like that. So anyone that's actually serious and wants to have a real debate, we're totally all for it. And we will absolutely own you. But the thing is, you have to pick your battles. Do we want to debate someone that's obviously trolling? Again, we've debated all sorts of people and the best way to see it is on YouTube. If you search Pro Extinction on YouTube, go to the channel, go to the live section. We have dozens of, hour-long, 2-hour-long debates with one person there, okay? Me and Steve or other activists, we do debates. Usually it's one-on-one, so it's not lots of different people. And so you can see all of these arguments taken to exhaustion. And every single time the person that we're debating will say, you know what, I can't argue against it, but it's not for me. So there is no way to ultimately argue against extinction. It's not possible. And it's really is just, short interactions, trolling and things like that that allow people to get away with not being completely owned, right? But if you come and do a long form debate with us, you will get absolutely wrecked. But anyone that wants to do that is welcome to. But you will get wrecked. If you want to do a long form debate with us, arrange it. Send me a message or join our Discord and ask for a debate. We'll do it, because we know that we can absolutely annihilate you every single time. We've never lost a debate. You can't lose a debate against extinction. There is no counter argument whereby, saying it's okay to torture children for benefit. There is no valid counter argument that doesn't make you sound like an evil clown. And we can even debunk that, right? We can even debunk evil people. We can debunk their positions to where they say, you know what, okay, maybe you're right. I don't have anything to say against this anymore. Thanks for your time, right? That is what happens basically every single time. That's the best proof. Go and watch our long form debates, and you will see all of their pathetic counter arguments get absolutely annihilated. There is no argument against ending suffering, right? It's effectively, should we be good or should we be bad? So you're arguing let's be bad. We're arguing let's be good, and good always wins, right? So and the thing is, the argument really revolves around what should be done, what's the right thing to do, what's the best thing to do. And so, if you're deciding what's the best thing for the world, you're not going to say, yeah, 99% should get tortured to death as babies so that 1% can have some shallow, fleeting privileges like Netflix. It's just not going to happen, right? There's no serious position that says, yes, the responsible thing to do is to torture the vast majority for the sake of a small minority. I'd love to hear the argument, guys, that makes that okay, but it's just obviously wrong. Okay, bringing on Salazar Lopez. This could be a spicy one, if it will load. In the meantime, we can engage with the chat. Mercy is key. Yeah, definitely. Empathy as well is one of the biggest ones. Most people are against extinction because they actually lack the capacity for empathy, and at least full empathy. They may have some limited form of empathy, but it's very limited. If you had empathy and could feel and understand how bad the suffering is that's going on, then it would be a lot harder for you to support it continuing. In the same way that animals don't feel guilty when they kill and eat another animal, that is the same disability that nature has forced onto humans in the same way it did to animals. It was only by giving them that disability that they would be able to survive selfishly and propagate the species. A selfless animal wouldn't survive very long, so they would go extinct. So only the selfish ones could avoid extinction. And now we have selfish humans. Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Well, yeah, it's going pretty good. Isn't this kind of like satanic?
No, we're an atheistic movement.
I mean, you want the death of everything. even the grass, even the plants that can feel and hear and scream when they get cut open into.
Animals are more likely to scream than plants.
No, it's because you don't have the right equipment. Like, okay, it's funny, but it's not. It's because you need the special equipment, and you can hear the plants. Like scream. Like, actually, search it up. If you don't know this, then you can't be debating me.
Okay, but we're for ending all suffering and all life as well. So plants would be included in that.
Okay, but the plants are also life. What about the earth?
What do you mean?
So no plants. I mean, that's kind of life. You're saying pro extinction. So you want the death of plants too?
Yeah.
Are you serious? That's making me laugh. That's so dumb. I mean, the plants are gonna, the plants. They're also life. They're also life. You gotta put that
Right,
into consideration, bud.
but you shouldn't care about life as a concept because
It's not a
that's
concept.
irrational.
It's true. If you put a special device, when they get cut, stepped on, it makes a noise.
Well, then all the more reason to have extinction and to end their suffering. That is what we're advocating for. The end of all suffering for everyone and every life form without discrimination. That is one of the biggest things about our movement is we are against discrimination. So it doesn't matter what you look like, what you sound like. It doesn't matter how far away you are. It doesn't matter what species you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if I can see you. It doesn't matter if you're in the future and haven't come to exist yet. It also doesn't matter if the risk to you is only hypothetical or a risk, right? So we want to end all suffering and all risk of suffering as well. Because the risk is, potentially just as bad as the real thing. It could become the real thing. So that is why we target the most vast and thorough extinction possible. So helping as much of life and helping them as thoroughly as possible to not be forced to exist and suffer. Hello, how's it going?
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, so pro-extinction movement, just to get clear, is it sort of the view that you want to like slowly bring all species out of existence?
Well, as fast as possible, really. But we want an animal-free planet, so no animals on Earth, and then we want to make sure that there's no life in the universe, and then finally humans, as the only ones capable of doing all of this, can go extinct last.
Okay, and why would you hold a view like this?
Because we prioritize the sufferers who will benefit from it.
Okay, say hypothetically we had some society of like different animals that weren't humans, but they were rational, they could speak, and they were suffering. Okay. And we we basically explain this movement to them. And they say something like, well, despite our suffering, we would rather live because we have hope, or something like that. They say even though they're suffering, they would rather be alive. Why would you tell them that view is false?
So any sort of freedom that risks suffering or creates suffering, allows suffering, is a bad freedom, right? And that is most freedom.
Why would you say? So, okay, this is what I want an argument for. Any system that allows for suffering is bad.
No, not. Yeah, I'd say yes.
What's the argument? Yeah.
Well, it is bad, right?
Why would anyone think just because a system allows suffering that makes it inherently bad? Why would anyone think that?
Well, it's going to be bad for those that suffer, isn't it? So that means it is bad.
Okay, so
look, when we talk about bad here, we're quantifying over everything, right? So we would say they have bad moments, right? But you could also say that them having good moments or their appreciation for life outweighs those sufferings, right? Or you could say it almost neutralizes the suffering.
You see, that's a concept that only applies to the lucky ones, right? The unlucky ones don't benefit from that.
Okay, but then if that's the case, why wouldn't you hold the view that only unlucky sufferers should be extinct?
Because that's impossible. The only way to end suffering is with total extinction.
Okay, let's say we had a society full of like 1 billion people, okay? And half this is actually, let's just say 30% of this society is suffering. And all suffering means is that their lives are more negative than good, okay? And then the rest of the group, the rest of the 70% is thriving. You would say we need to exterminate this entire society for the unlucky 30%?
We would do it even for one individual.
Do you think this, oh wow, that's interesting. Do you think this unlucky 30%, if we went within the society, they would most likely say they would still rather live? Like, do you think if you tried to assault them or murder them, that they would probably try to avoid it? Because I know people who suffer, it's not like they want to die, right? Not all of them, at least. So,
yeah, but
so who are you, like, why would your opinion on the matter matter?
Think about it this way. You take an animal to the vet to be put down, right? And you know it's suffering too much. It has to be put down. It doesn't want to be put down, right? But that's because it's irrational. It doesn't have the intelligence to understand what's going on, to make the right decision. It's got survival instinct. It's got fear.
Well, I could tell you why it's not analogous. And the reason it's not analogous is because the dog doesn't have a flow, right? It doesn't have any type of future experience that we could value. When you're saying we have to put it down because of some illness, if you're stipulating it's sick, right, and it can't get better, obviously there's no future there. So yeah, putting it down is like permissible. But let's say, you know, I'm just asking, if we went in this 30% that's suffering, just people who suffer, do you think most of them want to die?
Well, the point I was making with the dog is that even those who would be better off not existing, and this is actually the case for many depressed
How do you
people
determine who's better off not existing and who's better off existing?
and this is actually the case for many depressed people as well. Even if, I mean, in your hypothetical, right? You said essentially they would be better off not existing, right? So yeah, the thing is that you can be better off not existing and still want to exist. So, and that's not a contradiction, right? In the same way that a dog being put down who is in terrible suffering doesn't want to cease to exist, right? It's in their best interest, right? It's for the good, right? So the thing is, you know, we can't respect and give unlimited respect to freedom and choice, especially when we're dealing with irrational beings, unintelligent beings, and ones that pose a threat to others. So, you know, their freedom isn't more important than safety from suffering. And, you know, you could say that, so you're talking about this 30% that are having a bad life, but they still, they wouldn't opt out if given the choice, which again, doesn't mean that they don't want to. You know, you can absolutely have people that are begging for death every day who still can't bring themselves to do it. Which is, it's a tragedy for everyone involved. But you know, even if you had a booth like in Futurama where they can opt out, many of those depressed people who beg for death every day will still not be able to bring themselves to go into that booth. And it's not because deep down they want to live. A lot of the time it's because deep down they're too terrified to make that decision. It's a scary and terrifying decision. And, you know, it's obvious, right? Everyone's afraid of death. Even, you know, I have some fear of death, right? every animal, every person has a fear of death, usually, almost everyone, right? The vast majority. So that doesn't stop applying to depressed people or to animals that are about to be euthanized. You're still terrified, right? And that is largely down to survival instinct and brain biology, right? By making you terrified of death and essentially giving you like almost unlimited fear of it, you don't need to think about it and rationalize it, right? Animals don't go through life rationalizing everything. It's mostly instinct, like fear of death, okay? And that's because it's much more efficient for them to not need to think about it. Instinct is like a shortcut for intelligence, basically. And it would have been extremely inefficient for animals to have full rationality, especially when they were undeveloped, at the start of biological history on Earth. So instinct has always been a shortcut and substitute for intelligence. And yeah, it doesn't represent the right decision. It doesn't represent a fully rational decision. It just doesn't. So these people that constantly appeal to consent and rationality, it's just nonsense, right? People are going to be trapped in life and suffering. And those 30% in his hypothetical, the thing is, none of them asked to be born. And again, opting out is a difficult and terrifying thing that most people don't do, even if they want to. So they're effectively trapped in these prisons. And then what's going to happen next is they're going to have an accident or they're going to get a disease. And then their suffering is going to become really extreme. And for the worst off, it's going to become so bad that they, definitely shouldn't have been born, right? And many of them will not be able to opt out. So they're just trapped in hell, basically. Yeah, you can come up. Let's do it. I'm trying to bring you on now. Fallacies. Hello.
Appreciate it. What's up?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, so what's the argument for pro-extinction?
The argument is that we should prioritize having a suffering-free world over a world of unfair, exploitative fun at the at the expense of others.
Why should I accept that?
You don't have to. The thing is, good people will accept that, no one should have to suffer, and bad people will say, let them suffer. My privilege is more important. So that's just going to happen.
Wait, so your argument isn't going to be like objective? Wait, so I'm asking, the argument in favor of the proposition of pro-extinction being true, you say I don't have to hold to it? That's obviously can be confused, no?
Well, if you say to a sadist, like, you torturing that animal is bad, he might say, no, it's good, right? So...
I mean, he can motivate the proposition that, like, that is good, no? You're saying that you can't.
Yeah, I'm sure a sadist could make a really compelling argument for why their torture is a good thing. But, we wouldn't take them
so I'm
seriously.
asking you for the argument. Well, come on, this isn't, like, hard.
Well,
Got it.
thanks for coming on. You did get the argument, and you just disagreed with it. So that's, something you need to understand, is that it's perfectly possible to give you a perfectly valid argument, and you still don't agree with it because it goes against your priorities, your motivations, your privilege, essentially. If someone's, basically the proposition is, firstly, the reality is the tiny minority are oppressing the majority of life on this planet by forcing them to exist and suffer and benefiting from it, exploiting it. I don't really need to go into anything else, right? That's it, right? That should be enough, okay? If you're on the side of the privileged minority over the majority who are going through extreme and pointless suffering for the sake of the small minority, I mean, I just don't get it, right? How can people not understand this, right? If you are a good person, if you stand with the majority who are being tortured, you're a bad person if you stand with the minority who are torturing the majority. Like, where is the confusion for these people? There shouldn't be any, right? It's very obvious, it's very simple. And this just proves my point that I'm always telling you guys that it is biological, okay? So, the reason that person I had to kick just now disagrees with, and says, can you prove that, torturing children is bad? The thing is, it's obviously bad, but their brains are warped and twisted and irrational. You have to be extremely irrational to support suffering. Okay? So, effectively their selfish priorities of comfort, no moral obligation, freedom, including freedom to hurt others, not upsetting the apple cart, not upsetting the status quo. Thank you, Eva, for joining us. We'll catch you next time. These are comforts, right? I think most of the time it's really just, I like the status quo, I don't like change, I feel like I'm benefiting quite a lot from all of these beings that are being tortured for me. So, yeah, I disagree with the idea of ending their suffering, right? But effectively you are the privileged oppressor saying, yes, I know they're suffering for me. I know it's bad. I know it's wrong. But you can't convince me to do otherwise. Right? That's basically what they're saying. So yeah, I think you have to accept that you can't convince extremely bad people to just become good people. If you say, do you think we should be good people? That guy probably would have said no. Right? I think we can all agree with that. They would have probably said, no, why should I be a good person? Prove to me I should be a good person. Well, essentially it's for the greater good. And the greater good it's like a perfect world, right? It's doing the right thing and getting onto the track of being good and doing good. It's nowhere near as messy and complex as all of these people that come on try to make it seem. If you transition from being a selfish person to a selfless person, by essentially accepting the greater good and working towards it, and what's right and good and just, then you just get onto that track and it becomes easy, and you will probably end up an extinctionist. Because, and it's easy to demonstrate. So if you want to be a selfless person, okay, you have a few options. You can become a vegan, an anti-natalist. These are very small actions, and as I constantly say, they're actually bad for extinction and make worse suffering. But my point is that if you want to be a good person, you can go and do some acts of charity. You can go and help someone. You can try to adopt veganism or some other form of harm reduction, okay? But ultimately, we do live in a world system, okay? We live in a system of countries and democracy. We live in a world of forced existence and exploitation being acceptable, extreme suffering being acceptable. So the difference really is, extinctionists are people that, and this is really important, this is one of the main differences. We're people that have said to ourselves, the world seems kind of messed up. How do we make the world a good place? And individual acts of kindness are never going to do that. It has to be a systemic change. It has to be an overall change. We have to change the system. Little small acts of kindness do nothing to change the system. And you'd have to be very naive to say that they're going to have some sort of ripple effect that changes the world. That's what the oppressors want you to think and fantasize about, because they know it's never going to work. So, if you ask yourself, what should the world look like? What government should I support? What movement should I support? For me, it was a question of, okay, I should look for a movement that's saying, let's end all wars. Let's have total peace. Let's have like a utopia. I didn't find it. I gave up on looking for it. And then the pro-extinction movement found me, and it made even more sense than a utopia. Because even in a utopia where there's no wars between countries, you've still got life being forced to exist and suffering as a result. You've still got animals being tortured to death in the wild. You've still got unlimited risk of suffering being imposed on those that never asked for it. So there is no utopia or good world where we're still okay with torturing babies to death and allowing that to happen and the risk of extreme suffering. So yeah, that's what it's about. That's how we got to this position. It's a sense of responsibility, and in terms of the question that was asked earlier, what gives you the right to do this? Well, initially, we're all people that joined other movements. We wanted to find something greater than ourselves. So we weren't interested in taking on some sort of ultimate responsibility, but we found that there was no one else out there actually taking responsibility. You can't point to any movement that has a realistic way of improving the world, or there's no movement that has a zero tolerance policy on suffering and exploitation and victimization. So that's bad. That's it's a system, therefore, that says it's okay for some to suffer. But if you understand how bad suffering is, which most people don't, again, because of that biological defect in the brain. But if you don't have that defect, or if you have a much lesser version of it, like many people do in the movement, then you can understand, finally, just how insanely extreme suffering is and how it's completely unacceptable, right? So, yeah, a lot of it is down to empathy. And for me, that empathy inspired me to say, I want to be on the right side of the world. The world is messed up. I couldn't find anything that made sense. Tried to do it myself. No one was interested, which is because of I call it the inhibitor. It's a biological thing in your brain. And I'm not sure yet, we're still doing the science. We're not sure yet if it can just be cured, or if it's sort of fundamental to individuals' capacity, their brain capacity, their DNA and things like that. So that's one potential thing that we are working on and doing science on. Tommy is asking if what can be cured. So yeah, our science has demonstrated that being unempathetic is actually a defect. And the reason for that is that essentially to suppress empathy is to suppress understanding of reality. Okay, so that creates essentially your mind goes from being normal to being a small bubble of forced irrationality, which is held together by primal instincts such as your survival instinct, ego, pride, fear, instincts, desire to reproduce, hormones and things like that. No, I didn't hear what you said. So what did you mean you're looking if it can be cured? Right, yeah. So that defect in the brain, it actually has a massive effect on people. And again, the empathy that we're talking about, which you should have, is actually just a function of understanding the world. But it's by suppressing that ability to have empathy that you can have people say, I don't understand why it's wrong to exploit others. You can have animals that eat other animals and don't feel guilt about it. It's because part of their understanding and ability to actually understand reality has been massively suppressed. And that's why, we have a world full of dictators, violence, racism, sexism, all of this crazy stuff, because we're still animals. And the defect in the brain that I'm talking about is one of the biggest parts of what makes an animal and makes their mind animalistic. Now, could it be cured? It's a really great question that I'm actually doing science on myself and researching. Obviously, if we could cure it, it would be better. It would be a good thing for everyone that gets cured. Ideally, okay, that's a bit of a big statement. So maybe I'll dial that one back a bit. Can't say that just yet, right? It would be unscientific to say that. But if people could be, successfully cured and healed from it, then that would be a good thing. Is it psychological? Potentially. I think it's definitely at least biological as a base, like partly. It's possible that we might be able to cure it with psychology. That is one of the things that I'm, researching, basically. There's a lot of sort of potential health risks that could come about from messing with the kernel of the brain, essentially, the software and the operating system it runs on. So to elaborate on that, sort of the current mind that most people have, it's like an irrational bubble of selfish needs and ignoring others and their needs. It's not a good system for a mind, but it is a stable system. So one thing we have to really be careful with when looking into cures for this is whether or not it's going to cause mental instability. Essentially, if we were able to switch people to something else, then we would be changing their entire operating system, potentially. So there's a lot of implications on it, and dangers to mental health, potentially. But, despite all of the dangers that I'm trying to keep in mind, we are looking into curing it. And yeah, if we did cure it, what would the world look like? We would have world peace. We would have no more racism, no more hatred, no more sexism, because everyone would essentially understand that we should work together for the greater good. We would be united instead of divided, and we would all be moral people. We would all be selfless people, meaning that if we had to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good, or to defend a victim or something like that, whatever, we would do it, right? Within context, and potentially have to be a calculated decision to sacrifice yourself, right? But we'd be willing to do it if necessary, whereas most people right now are not willing to do that. How many people would sacrifice themselves if necessary to help others? Not very many. Okay, and that is essentially part of the defect. It's prioritizing yourself over others, when actually empathy sort of gives you an understanding that you are not more important than other people, right? That you don't have to prioritize yourself at the expense of others. You can prioritize others at the expense of yourself. And if you have empathy, then you will feel compelled to do so, because you will value others equally as you value yourself, if not more. Why should I sacrifice myself for someone else? Yeah, again, you're asking it as a question. But the thing is, if you have empathy, then you wouldn't need to ask that question. You would just agree that, yeah, I would feel too bad not doing it if I knew that it was necessary, right? So, yeah, that's been a great stream for today. Thank you for everyone that's really followed for a long time. I know there's a few of you out there that are watching, so thank you for joining us. Follow my channel if you'd like. I never ask people to do that. It's probably not helping my channel grow by not asking. But yeah, please follow and check me out on my next stream. Next one will probably be maybe tomorrow, but maybe not. You know, tomorrow is Saturday, so the girlfriend's probably going to want to do stuff. Join us on Discord if you want to continue the conversation. You'll have access to me and the rest of the activists at all times, 24/7. We're on Discord. We can respond to messages. Google Abolish Suffering Discord. It's the first link if you want to come and chat. Or check out our website, proextinction.com. The link to Discord is also on there. And thank you